Hey everybody, Roy Rogers here from The White Book and Second Sons, and I'm making this video today to sort of try something new, which is to talk to you about sort of how to play the game, in particular, how to play against combo. Because I feel like every White Book episode, every Second Son episode, or when I'm just talking casually with my testing group or with my friends, all we ever do is argue and talk about combo. If you want to actually listen to a discussion about combo and all this sort of stuff on the White Book, you can listen to a very recent episode of the White Book, which I'll put in the comment section here on the YouTube video, where Aaron and I get very shrill with each other about sort of what is combo. So what this video is going to be, it's going to be focused mostly on what combo is, how it works, and then how some strategies to beat it. I'll also talk a little bit about the history of combo in second edition. But I really want to focus sort of on how combo works and then some strategies from me, how to play it, how to play against it, excuse me. So we're going to start, though, a little bit with the history of the combo. Because combo now is about a year old. It made its sort of big splash thanks to the Italians, and we'll come back to them, who came up with the first combo deck, which is, what do I mean when I say combo deck? As you can tell from that White Book episode, or if you listen to that the recent banter episode about combination, what do I mean when I'm saying there's some debate over what combo is? And what do I mean when I say combo? I'm talking about OTK decks. I'm not talking about wall decks. I'm not talking about, I don't know, Miri stand decks with, with Magister Illyrio. I don't know. Anyway, no. I am talking about decks that try to go from having close to 0 power. Most combo decks have 0, maybe 1 from winning dominance. 0 power to 5, 10, 15 power in a single turn. Sometimes the marshalling phase, but usually with most combo decks that exist right now, in the challenges phase by winning maybe 1 or 2 challenges. This can be really frustrating experience to play against because most decks in Game of Thrones, even wall decks, the other great villain of the community, they're still focused on challenges, like each round, who does challenges, who wins challenges, matters a lot. It's the wall decks are challenge control decks. They're designed to stop you from making challenges or making the challenges you do ineffectual. Combo decks do not give anything about your challenges. They let you do anything short of blanking the key characters that they need to get their synergies off. They just want to win, and they just want to win on their own terms. They're very uninteractive, and things like that. So when I say combo for the rest of this video, I'm going to be referring to these OTK decks, these one-turn kill, although you don't kill your opponent in Game of Thrones. But the term comes from games like Magic and Hearthstone and other games that require players have health totals. But the general point you can come across is they are one-turn win games, faster even than a rush deck, which is a very traditional archetype in Game of Thrones. But again, if you want to hear about these archetypes, you can listen to that White Book episode. So anyway, what is combo? Combo started, or when did combo start? Combo started about a year ago when the Italian meta produced Hyper Viper. Oh man, Hyper Viper. Hyper Viper was a deck that abused the Red Viper. And in fact, I have a pretty recent, we'll get there. Yep, here we go. A pretty recent version of combo, there we go, of Hyper Viper here is a deck from Matt Magos, I believe is how you pronounce that. He, I believe, made the top 8 or top 16 at Stalak in 2016, and this is kind of a current version, pre the restricted list, of what Hyper Viper looks like. It is a deck that relies primarily on this card, the Red Viper, who has this reaction. After you win a challenge in which the Red Viper is participating as an attacker, he gains 1 power for every 5 strength by which you win that challenge. And it uses him to get his strength really, really, really high using You Murdered Her Children. I mean, his strength starts pretty high at 7. But he uses You Murdered Her Children, a 2-cost event that says choose a Martell character you control. Until end of the phase, double that character's strength. At the end of the phase, if that character's don't play kill it, well, Viper's not going to be around to die because you'll have won the game. It uses that and that to get his strength astronomically high so that you can win 1 or 2 challenges and gain 15 power. Now, Wheels Within Wheels and Annals of Castle Black are really key strategies to Hyper Viper as it developed over the course of the last year. Because initially, these two cards, Annals and Wheels, were not out when Hyper Viper was first brought to us by the Italians. It wasn't really until later in 2017, in the run up to Worlds, that those two cards, well, they were released, and people figured out the ways in which they synergize really powerfully. Particularly Wheels. Because what Wheels does is Wheels lets you search the top 10 cards of your deck for any number of events and reveal them. That sounds pretty harmless. It's a building orders. It's a summons for events. Cool. But then it does this thing. Add one to your hand and place the others in your discard pile. Shuffle your deck. So this allows you to go and search early for any of your various draw events or card advantage events, Baron Merit Fair, a Rose of Gold, very strong in combo decks, Gift of Arbor Red, or your Econ to the Rose Banner that really lets you power through, that lets you seed your discard pile to then use Annals of Castle Black, which is this 4 gold, 4 initiative, 1 claim plot that each player may play events in his or her discard pile as if they were in his or her hand. After an event is played in discard pile, after an event is placed in a discard pile, remove it from the game. This is really powerful combined with Wheels because it lets you seed your discard pile for your Annals turn. You don't need to actually draw a bunch of these events, particularly things like Nightmares or Hand's Judgments that you don't really need while you're setting your combo up, but but unlike say some of the, so you could add a card advantage card like like a Rose of Gold, and then put cards that you need for your combo turn like Lord Renly's Ride, Hand's Judgment, You Murdered Her Children. You can put those in your discard pile, and where they'll be sitting, basically waiting safe and sound for a for your Annals turn, and for you to when you go off on your Annals turn. And by going off, I mean that's when you try to win. Okay, when you try to win. So the other thing about more modern versions of this deck is it uses the Knight of Flowers, which he gives Renown reaction after you play an event. Knight of Flowers gets +2 strength until end of the phase. With this card, to the Rose Banner, marshalling action, choose a Tyrell character you control, gain X strength, where X is that character's strength, and sacrifice that character. So you can do things like play Dornishman's Wife, trigger the Knight of Flowers, play Baron the Maiden Fair, trigger the Knight of Flowers. Then after you Baron Maiden Fair, 2 awesome cards on the top of your deck, you play Dragon's Tail, trigger Knight of Flowers, etc., etc., etc. You get 1,000,000 gold. Well, not actually 1,000,000, but close to 1,000,000 gold with Knight of Flowers, thanks to the Rose Banner. So he's got like, I don't know, 20 strength, and that lets you sack him and play this guy, the Knight of Flowers. Another trick, or excuse me, this guy, the Red Viper, and win the game. Another trick is Magna-Mighty and Last of the Giants, which lets you play Magna-Mighty because, again, you got 1,000,000 gold from your Knight of Flowers and to the Rose Banner. And then you play him using, you can sometimes just play him, but you want to play him with Last of the Giants, which is an action that lets you put a neutral character to play from your hand until end of the phase. That character gains Intimidate. Doesn't really matter in this context. Until end of the phase, if that character is still in play, kill it. Cannot be saved. So you kill him. He's on the top of your dead pile, and that makes your Lord Renly's Ride really, really, really strong. Choose a character until end of phase. That character gets +X strength and gains Intimidate. X is the printed strength of the top character in your dead pile. So this is really strong, but it's actually not the strongest combo deck. The strongest combo deck was Ladies Combo, which was created by Jake Platt and Brad Eamon, initially in preparation when they were on my team for Jesse's Name Day tournament, but Jake took it to get his Worlds bye. He took it to Canadian Nationals alongside some other luminaries of the North American community like CT and Jess Thompson and some other of the greater Toronto guys like Kevin Austin, and they all did really well. In fact, they did so well that the finals came down to a mirror match between CT and Jake, in which Jake won. And that sort of spawned this restricted list. The goal of this restricted list was to get rid of annals and wheels and hand's judgment, the cancel, interrupt when the effects of an opponent's event would initiate, cancel those effects. X is the cost of the event. But it didn't kill it. Because the ladies combo is not dead. Because what the restricted list did when it put things like annals, wheels, and judgment on it so they couldn't be played together, a lot of deck builders, particularly Darknaj, my friend and teammate, Jonathan Andrews, and we jokingly call this sort of revised ladies deck Najbo, because Darknaj was just obsessed with it. But the Italians, the progenitors of modern combo, recently also came up with this. This sort of stormed over their big event, which is a version of combo that gets around, of ladies combo that gets around the restricted list. So how does ladies combo work? Because ladies combo seems innocent enough. Like many gendered expectations, it doesn't live up to that. It actually exceeds those expectations. And ladies combo is a very, very potent deck, because what it does is it tries to abuse the synergies between a bunch of events. The first is 6 maids in a pool, which is the action, draw 1 card for each lady character you control, and all men are fools. After you win a challenge by 5 or more, each lady character you control gains 1 power, max 1 per challenge. And then this card, which when I first saw Jake's deck, I didn't entirely believe that this card would be as good as it is, but this was sort of the secret sauce that made the ladies deck work, which is Melee at Bitterbridge. Action, choose X participating characters. Each character with the highest strength among those characters gains renown, more power, until the end of the challenge. Each other chosen character does not contribute its strength to the challenge. So what that lets you do is gain a lot of power. So what you'll do is you will play a bunch of ladies, Dismera, Eleanor, Lady in Waiting is not actually a lady, but Marjorie, Marcella, Tana, and Tanda, and play a bunch of them, and then go into the challenges phase. Particularly, here we got Marcella, boom, 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 who lets you do multiple challenges if they have fewer cards your opponent has fewer cards in their hand, which they will thanks to your ability to play 6 maids in a pool, which lets you draw a card for every lady you control. So you go into the challenges phase with all these ladies, usually Marcella, and you just challenge away using Melee at Bitterbridge, Growing Strong, pump Marcella's strength, or she can't pump Marcella's strength, but pumping Dismera. But you can also use Dismera to take away people's strength, make their strengths higher. Marjorie. There's just a variety of different ways to pump strengths to get it so that your Melee at Bitterbridge is going to take out all of your opponent's blockers. And that lets you get unopposed. It lets you get somewhere between, let's see, we've got 1. If you have all the ladies out, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 power per challenge. So that's 7 power, just without power claim, without anything like that. Well, plus the renounce, that's 8 power on a single challenge. And so then you go for your second challenge, if you're using Marcella, who, again, she just needs, if you're using her, you can do that as intrigue and power. You just do the second challenge, you win the second challenge, and you win, because that's 16 power, not counting claim. And you can guarantee that you'll see these cards by using the filtering of Tana Merriweather. After you play an event, choose and discard 1 card from your hand to draw 1 card. So you are always cycling through cards. You're using this card advantage engine in the form of 6 maids in a pool to gain and off to Gulltown, which is how you can get a military icon onto your ladies and his card advantage, and of course Dragon's Tail and Treachery to stop things like Begging Brother and other things that could cause you a headache. And then this version, what's really interesting about the Italian version is it's running Emissary of the High Tower, which allows you to choose an event in your discard pile until the end of the phase. It's like a mini Annals. You may play the event as if it was in your hand. If you do, remove it from the game instead of placing it in your discard pile. So, this is really strong. It has a lot of redundancy, and the way in which it gets around the fact that it no longer has access to the easy card advantage of Annals and Wheels is this little card, Little Figures Menaline, 4/1/1. Reduce the cost of each event you play by 2, which means that your possibly expensive, well, your Bounty of Highgarden, which gives you a lot of gold, is 0. Your Nightmares is 0. Your Amelia Bitterbridge is reduced by 2, so that means it's just cheaper all around. Growing Strong is free. All Men Are Fools, already free. And then 6 Maiden in the Pool, 2 gold, free now. And then, of course, you can recycle it with Emissary Hightower. It's just really powerful, particularly since Eleanor over here lets you play. You can do something like Eleanor, play Bounty of Highgarden, then play Emissary of Hightower to Bounty of Highgarden again, because again, Eleanor lets you play Marshal or play 1 additional limited card each round. So you just get a bunch of gold. So this sort of just engine that you have going here of the synergies between these ladies and your ability to gain tons of power with All Men Are Fools combined with Amelia Bitterbridge is just really strong. So the question is, how do you beat these 2 decks? So we have Hyper Viper, and we have, excuse me, I'll get to that. We'll have 6 Maids in the Pool. Right now, I would say 6 Maids in the Pool, the ladies combo is stronger than Hyper Viper. But Hyper Viper just got this brand new card, which is Someone Always Tells, which is the interrupt when the effects of an opponent's event or triggered plot ability will initiate, cancel those effects. What that means is, very simply, you don't have to run Hand's Judgment as your restricted card. Because let's go back to Hyper Viper, which currently, this version of Hyper Viper currently has 1, 2, 3 restricted cards as far as I see. I don't even remember if the Red Viper is restricted. I know he's on Sid's extended restricted list, but I don't think he's on the main one. But anyway, at least 3 restricted cards. It now doesn't have to worry about, so you can't run Wheels and Annals anymore together, but you could run Annals now because you can replace these Hand's Judgments with Someone Always Tells. So Hyper Viper is going to be coming back into meta as a force. So the question is, what is your answers to these effects? So I have sort of 3 suggestions: 2 cards, and a deck. So the cards, the first card is Tris Botley. He's a pretty classic answer to combo. His wonderfully handsome visage is based on friend of the community. I think he's now FFG's overall community manager, Evan. So Evan / Tris, his action is choose a card in your opponent's discard pile and remove it from the game. Until Tris Botley leaves play, that player cannot marshal or play any copy of that card. So what that means is they only get access to 1 of their abusive events. So this is particularly good against ladies because you can hit, you usually need to play 6 Maids in a Pool early on their first turn that they're using to set up. So you can use it, remove it from the game, they don't get to draw more cards. You can also remove All Men Are Fools after the first time they use it. So they can't do that second challenge for it to go off. But of course they have access to Treachery, which means you need to be running Hand's Judgments. And of course, the ladies' decks don't have access to Hand's Judgment. They generally need other restricted cards to function. So unlike Hyper Viper, that we'll get to, Hyper Viper now has the event cancel. Someone Always Tells. This Lady's deck doesn't have access to that. It has access to Treachery, which means if you have Hand's Judgment, Triss is usually a pretty solid answer. Particularly because the Italian version is not running Valor. It's running Calm, Close Call, Confiscation, Counting Coppers, 2 Meddlings, and a Time of Plenty. It's not running, excuse me, here's Triss. It's not running Valor, so if you can set Triss up, that gives you 2 turns to remove 2 of their key cards at the end of the discard pile. Particularly if you can pillage one of their useful cards using Triss's ability or some other pillage effect that you have if you're Greyjoy. So Triss is the #1 card I would say is really strong. It's also strong against Hyper Viper because Hyper Viper traditionally relied on Annals. So you could, since they want good things to be in their discard pile, that gives you a feast of things that you can remove. But you can also, we don't know what now with your Someone Always Tells legal, Hyper Viper, what direction it's going to go, whether it's going to bring Annals out off the restricted list to replace a Hand's Judgment or something like that. We'll see. But it unless you remove things like You Murdered Her Children, or even Someone Always Tells, the first time they play it, you can then remove it so they can't cancel your Hand's Judgments when you Hand's Judgment their You Murdered Their Children, variety of things like that. It gives you additional answers. If somehow a copy of the Red Viper ends up, thanks to Intrigue Claim, ends up in the discard pile, ooh, Triss is... Got it. So Triss gives you a lot of outs as a Greyjoy player to hit stuff. But the key mulligan strategy, if you're playing Greyjoy and you're playing Triss, is you need to see him. You need to mulligan for him. He is really, really strong against combo decks. Another good card, particularly in Greyjoy against combo decks, is Your King Commands It, which is a 6/1 Edict Noble. Each non-king, non-queen character cannot gain power. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that's really good against ladies, because not a queen, not a queen, only the queen of my heart, not the queen version. Not a queen, not a queen, not a queen. So the current Italian ladies deck runs no queens. I don't believe there's any attachments that give queens. The Lannister and Tyrell attachments that make people a king can not go on ladies. So if you can time it with their Little Fingers Meddling turn, Your King Commands It is really strong answer, because let's read All Men Are Fools. All Men Are Fools says, after you win a challenge by 5 or more strength, each lady character you control gains 1 power. So it, again, gains power. You can stop them. Really strong. Now, Your King's Command It, while like Triss has some drawbacks where the card could not end up in the discard pile, they could treachery it, you could not see Triss. There's a variety of sort of like the right card just doesn't end up in the discard pile, or they nightmares Triss and you don't have that Hand's Judgment. Whatever. There's a lot of answers to Triss in that form. Your King's Command It, your opponent in the form of ladies doesn't have, oops, excuse me, wrong card. Doesn't have a lot of answers. But you, because of this thing that I highlighted here, plot deck limit 1, you need to time it perfectly. So like Triss is a lower skill cap card. You mulligan for him, you play him, and you try to protect him with Hand's Judgments from nightmares or from treachery. You have to time it perfectly with Your King Commands It. So if your opponent, particularly let's look at the ladies deck again. This ladies deck is running 2 Little Fingers Meddling, the engine of its combo turn. So if you can't finish them off with a Valor or something similar, or win on your own the following turn, they're going to be able to go off again. So you only have one option, the 6. If you're playing the 6/1/1, the 6 gold though gives you a lot of options. So I'm really happy with it. Now, Triss is pretty good against Hyper Viper, as I said, because Hyper Viper traditionally has relied on a discard pile, and I think it still will rely more explicitly on its discard pile than the current version of Ladies does. So that makes Trish strong. Your king commands it, though, has a problem. And that is this card. Crown of Gold and Roses that I mentioned earlier. Lord character, attached character gains the king trait, which means you can just put this on the Red Viper, and the Red Viper can gain 1,000,000 power. So your king commands it is a better answer to ladies and a much weaker answer to Hyper Viper. While I would say Triss is a little bit of a better answer to Hyper Viper and a little worse of an answer to ladies. That brings us, last and not least, to I think the overall, if you are going to a deck, or excuse me, a regional this upcoming summer, and you're really definitely afraid of combo. Oh my god, combo's the worst experience in the world for me to play against. Oh god, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. You should play Targaryen. And I found this Targaryen list that I think does a pretty good job of answering combo. It could be tweaked. It's created by Adam, who I believe was Chinese national champion in 2017, did really well at Worlds. I think he was in the top 16 or top 8, playing a really cool Tyrell deck. Very nice guy. I met him. I watched him play at Worlds. Really nice guy. Good deck builder. And Targ Wars to Come, I think, is a really good bet against combo. Why? Why is it a really good bet against combo? Well, first, it's because of a ruling Danny made, which is that you do all additives before you do multiplication in Thrones. So you murdered your children, to go back to it. You murdered your children. Doesn't work. Well, works always. But if you whack their strength down, you murdered your children. It always lowers you murdered their children. So if they double Red Viper to 14 with you murdered her children, and you whack them with a bunch of burn events, you are in good shape. Because that now cuts it. So if you Dracarys him, he goes down to 3, goes up to 6 now, making it much harder for him to gain 1,000,000 power. Now, so that's really good. So burn gives you the out here. And so that means things like, and the nice thing about Hyper Viper versus Targaryen is this guy, Red Viper, has to go in challenges to win. So you have Dragon is No Slave, you have Dracarys, you have Adam here isn't running Consuming Flames, but I think if you're really afraid of combo, you probably want to cut these Fire and Bloods and this Funeral Pyre for some Consuming Flames. You have a bunch of burn that can whack him. Now, this card, Lord Renly's Ride with Mag, is a little problematic for that game plan, but that's why you run this card, Hand's Judgment. You need to have 2 because of the new Targ, or excuse me, not new Targ, new Martell cancel, but I think you're in a pretty good shape because of this card, Crown of Gold. So Crown of Gold, you need to mulligan for when you're playing against Hyper Viper. You want to see it. Hyper Viper will end up giving you cards through things like Dragon's Tail and other similar symmetrical effects. But Crown of Gold is a card you want to mulligan for. You want to have it in your hand. Hyper Viper is not going to be doing intrigue challenges against you, so it'll be safe there. And you want to crown the Viper. You crown the Viper, his base strength goes down to 3. That means even with some of their other tricks, you can keep his, if you can't kill him outright, his strength can be low enough that they're not going to win, and that opens you up to this plot the next turn, March to the Wall to get rid of him, or Valar Morghulis to get rid of him, or just he dies because of you murdered her children. So even with the close call that they're going to do to bring back, that's close call is much better against Heads on Spikes than it is against sort of Targ Burn, because you can just force them to use a bunch of their resources, and then but they can't get to that 15 power, you win because they're not going to have those resources to do another combo turn, even with 2 annals. So the key thing here is not necessarily to kill the Red Viper, it's to get his strength under a manageable amount. And to do that, you're going to need, to help do that, you're going to need this lady, Danny. She really helps. That additional -1, so you Dragon is No Slave, So Dragon No Slave becomes 3. Dracaris becomes, 5. If you're still running, if you're not consuming flames, becomes 4. If you're running these other events, Fire and Blood, Funeral Pyre, things like that, they become -1s that are just chipping away at that Hyper Viper strength, so he can't get to 15, even if he does all 3 challenges. Which again is going to be pretty hard, particularly with your Astapor. Your Astapor at Bestow 4 is really strong. So like if you can get that set up early, that means they have to have even more answers. See, the thing about Targ is Targ forces the Hyper Viper player to have every answer. They need, so let's see what they got here. They need their Nightmares. They need their Cancel. It won't be Hand Judgment. It will be Someone Always Tells. They have to have all those things because Targ has so many ways to keep that Hyper Viper strength low. Really strong. So you want to make sure, if you're playing against Hyper Viper, to have Crown of Gold in your opening hand, or, thanks to Mulligan it, and that you want to try to see Astapor as early as possible. So you might want to take this deck up to maybe 2 Astapors or even 3. Take out this JC Drummonds if you're afraid of combo. Take out the Iron Throne if you're afraid of combo. What is this? But that's against Hyper Viper. I think that actually overall a good Targ Wars deck like this one, particularly if it's tweaked a little bit, has a positive matchup against Hyper Viper. I know the hardcore combo for people out there are freaking out, I'm sure, when I say that. But I do think if you know what your strategy is, you listen to some of the advice I have here, go for Crown, get an early Astapor, get as much burn as you want. Don't care so much about characters. Don't care so much about board presence. What you care about is burn. If you can get this lady out, that's pretty sweet. But you care about burn because of that ruling that additive and thus subtractive effects happen first. You can really wreak havoc on the math of a Hyper Viper player. But what about this deck? What about probably, I think, even maybe after the release of Someone Always Tells, this is still probably the best combo deck. What does Targ have against this? What Targ has against this is, let's take a look at this character base. 2 strength, 3 strength, 2 strength, 1 strength, 3 strength, 3 strength, 2 strength, and 3 strength. You have this card, Blood of the Dragon, which gives you a huge amount of flexibility that makes it really dangerous for a combo player. If you can time it with their Little Fingers Meddling, yeah, they're going to have some issues, particularly if this lady, the Queen, Daenerys Targaryen, Queen Dany, the Beth lady, is out there. That makes these little chuddy, small strength ladies that you got here much more vulnerable to your Dragon is No Slave, to your Dracarises, because the Italian version is not running something like, where are we here? Something like the Knight of Flowers or Mag or things like that. So it's not running, it has no real way to deal. I mean, it has some of the strength pumps to make its melee a bit of brains. It's got Going Strong. It's got Dismira, but Dismira can die right away to your Dragon is No Slave, or you can crown her if you're going second on their combo turn. Blood just gives you a lot of flexibility. And one of the reasons why I picked Adam's deck in particular, because Adam's deck is also running King in the North. In King of the North, Jakob's plot is when a player does not control a king character, he or she cannot trigger abilities on characters, locations, or attachments. So, which makes it better against this deck than your king commands it, because they can't trigger things like Pleasure Barge, Emissary Hightower to recycle their strength pumps. They can't trigger Tiana to draw a bunch of cards. So it gives you sort of 2 outplots. It gives you, compared to your King Commands It, which is just a single out, this deck has Blood of the Dragon for burn potential, and it has King of the North for lockdown, and it has Valor Margulis to give you 3 outs to clear their board and survive. The key cards in this matchup are all your burn cards, Drax, and particularly Dragon Does No Slaves, because Dragon Does No Slaves are more important here because a lot of their characters that they're going to be resting power on are not necessarily going to be in challenges, so you need to be able to whack them outside of challenges. And of course, Danny. Danny gives a lot of flexibility as an answer to combo because of that -1. And again, in both matchups, Hyper Viper and Six Maids in a pool, but Six Maids in a pool can't run Hand's Judgments, so your Hand's Judgments are free to cancel their Nightmares, free to cancel their Treachery. So you are in and you can Nightmares their Taina, their Marcella, their Eleanor, to prevent some of these abuses. So this package that Adam has here, I think, is a really solid answer. I would probably get rid of maybe the Fire and the Bloods and the Funeral Pyres for Consuming Flames, particularly because you don't care about ditching target cards into your discard pile right now, because what you're playing, when you're playing against combo, for the first few turns, you're not necessarily trying to execute your game plan. I mean, unless you're playing a rush deck, but I don't think rush decks are particularly good against particularly ladies. You can watch Jake Platt's semifinal game on Rob St. John's channel, and see that a good ladies player knows how to play around rush. I think burn is the best way to go about it. So I hope that this video was informative for you. I hope that it gave you some idea of how to beat combo, what are the outs for beating combo, and yeah. So if you would like to see more videos like this from me, or if you have feedback of things I did well, things I did wrong, please be constructive. I'm a very sensitive soul. But let me know. I hope that this was useful for those of you who are running off to regional season and are just combo wakes you up in the night with cold sweats. Well, hopefully I've given you some solutions to that. Yeah, so remember, Game of Thrones fans, chaos is a ladder, and this is just one way to climb it. That might have been too cheesy, but I think it worked as a sign off. I don't know.